Newton's first law of motion. Galileo's simple but revolutionary ideas dethroned Aristotelian mechanics. A new mechanics had to be developed. This task was accomplished almost single handedly by Isaac Newton, one of the greatest scientists of all times. Newton built on Galileo's ideas and laid the foundation of mechanics in terms of three laws of motion that go by his name. Galileo's law of inertia was his starting point, which he formulated as the first law of motion. That is, every body continues to be in its state of rest or uniform motion in a straight line unless compelled by some external force to act otherwise. The state of rest or uniform linear motion both imply zero acceleration. The first law of motion can therefore be simply expressed as if the net external force on a body is zero, its acceleration is zero. Acceleration can be non-zero only if there is a net external force on the body. Two kinds of situations are encountered in the application of this law in practice. In some examples, we know that the net external force on the object is zero. In that case, we can conclude that the acceleration of the object is zero. For example, a spaceship out in an interstellar space far from all other objects and with all its rockets turned off has no net external force acting on it. Its acceleration, according to the first law, must be zero. If it is in the motion, it must continue to move with a uniform velocity. More often, however, we do not know all the forces to begin with. In that case, if we know that an object is unaccelerated, that is, it is either at rest or in uniform linear motion, we can infer from the first law that the net external force on the object must be zero. Gravity is everywhere. For terrestrial phenomena in particular, every object experiences gravitational force due to the earth. Also, objects in motion generally experience friction, viscous drag, etc. If then on earth an object is at rest or in uniform linear motion, it is not because there are no forces acting on it, but because the various external forces cancel out, that is, add up to zero net external force. Consider a book at rest on a horizontal surface, figure 5.2a. It is subjected to two external forces, the force due to gravity, that is, its weight, W, acting downward, and the upward force on the book by the table, the normal force, R. R is a self-adjusting force. This is an example of the kind of situation mentioned above. The forces are not quite known fully, but the state of motion is known. We observe the book to be at rest. Therefore, we conclude from the first law that the magnitude of R equals that of W. A statement often encountered is, since W equals R, forces cancel and therefore the book is at rest. This is incorrect reasoning. The correct statement is, since the book is observed to be at rest, the net external force on it must be zero, according to the first law. This implies that the normal force R must be equal and opposite to the weight W. Figure 5.2a. A book is at rest on the table, and B. A car moving with uniform velocity. The net force is zero in each case. Consider the motion of a car starting from rest, picking up speed and then moving on a smooth straight road with uniform speed. Figure 5.2b. When the car is stationary, there is no net force acting on it. During pickup, it accelerates. This must happen due to a net external force. Note that it has to be an external force. The acceleration of a car cannot be accounted for by any internal force. This might sound surprising, but it is true. The only conceivable external force along the road is the force of friction. It is the frictional force that accelerates a car as a whole. You will learn about friction in session 5.9. When the car moves with constant velocity, there is no net external force. The property of inertia contained in the first law is evident in many situations. Suppose we are standing in a stationary bus and the driver starts the bus suddenly. We get thrown backward with a jerk. Why? Our feet are in touch with the floor. If there were no friction, we would remain where we were. while the floor of the bus would simply slip forward under our feet and the back of the bus would hit us. However, fortunately, there is some friction between the feet and the floor. If the start is not too sudden, that is, if acceleration is moderate, the frictional force would be enough to accelerate our feet along with the bus. But our body is not strictly a rigid body. It is deformable, that is, it allows some relative displacement between different parts. What this means is that while our feet go with the bus, the rest of the body remains where it is due to inertia relative to the bus, therefore, we are thrown backward. As soon as that happens, however, the muscular forces on the rest of the body by the feet come into play to move the body along with the bus. A similar thing happens when the bus suddenly stops. Our feet stop due to the friction which does not allow relative motion between the feet and the floor of the bus. But the rest of the body continues to move forward due to inertia. We are thrown forward. The restoring muscular forces again come into play and bring the body to the rest.